We have developed speed, but we have shut ourselves in. Machinery that gives abundance has left us in want. We think too much and feel too little. More than machinery, we need humanity.
We know the air is unfit to breathe and our food is unfit to eat, as if that's the way it's supposed to be. We know things are bad, worse than bad. They're crazy.
Silence! The great and powerful Oz knows why you have come.
You've got to say, I'm a human being. God damn it! My life has value.
You have meddled with the primal forces of nature.
Don't give yourselves to brutes, men who despise you, enslave you, who regiment your lives, tell you what to do, what to think, or what to feel, who drill you, diet you, treat you like cattle, use you as cannon fodder. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts.
And now, Reality Rants with Jason Bermas.
And who loves you? And who do you love?
Hey everybody, Jason Bermas here. It is Reality Rants. I'm excited to be here. It is Thursday, which is the last day of our week doing the show. What do we got? Red Voice Producer. Tech issues right now on Podbean, trying to fix it. All right, hopefully we can get that going and at least get the second hour out there, and then we'll just replace the MP3. But I hope we will be able to go over there because that's where you're going to see the large majority of my Roger Stone interview. Now, you're also going to be able to see that, obviously, if you're a premium member, and you'll be able to watch the video. But it really is just a conversation. I want to say this before we get into any of the news or what I discussed with Roger. And we're actually going to play a clip of Roger Stone discussing the Kennedy assassination, because this wasn't for me to cheerlead Trump or to cheerlead Roger Stone. I wanted to ask real questions about what are we actually doing? Because, all right, for instance, one of the points I was making is, look, there's no doubt that Donald Trump is extremely popular. Love him, hate him, indifferent. You'd have to be a fool not to understand that this guy, across the country, and in a lot of places that you wouldn't figure, is very popular with people, period. And I've said it. I'm not saying I have any evidence here, YouTube. Don't take me down. But, you know, I believe that Trump won in a landslide. Am I allowed to believe that? All right, and I do think that he was, in fact, cheated. And the main thing is the infrastructure hasn't changed. The same things that I was talking about almost 20 years ago with these voting machines has really only gotten worse in so many ways now with the mail-in balloting, all right, and the ballot harvesting. It's all very bad news. One person, one vote, paper ballot, person counts. Person who counts has another person check as they count, and then we use our technology to empower people to check up on that. That's what I want to see. One of the other questions that I asked Stone that you're going to actually get to see during this segment, probably the next thing I'll get to after we talk about NASA and Artemis and go to the moon, is the fact that if Trump can't expose JFK and the documents we were already guaranteed before that, essentially the deep state or whatever you want to call them from 50 years ago, how's he supposed to take on the deep state now? And Stone's actually, you know, kind of poignant about it, but we're going to play it. You're going to get to see it for yourself. If you want to see the whole thing, hopefully, again, we'll have the Podbean going, and then you can listen to it if you are not premium. But if you are premium, come on over because it's totally worth a listen. I also talked to him about Julian Assange. See, I wanted to talk to him about some of the very big failures of that administration. And if somehow, and I don't know how he would get elected if you don't fix the infrastructure first, who are the next people in that administration that are going to change things? You know, I want to believe that he gets a Rand Paul in there, right, and Rand is able to do something. I don't know, but there are no guarantees, right? So that's the conversation. It's funny. I even get to talk to Roger about lobbying at the very end. You know, I think that is an infrastructural change. And I even said, hey, man, you know something about lobbying. And I said, I'd love to have a long form conversation about that sometime. You know, I have now talked to Roger a couple of times behind the scenes. We're talking about 5-minute or less encounters. Okay. And not really a 5-minute where we're having a big discussion. The first time I saw him at the Reawaken America tour at the bar, that was going. I've got an incoming call. We're not going to take that. Sorry. Can't take that one. Early in the morning to be calling me. Unless it was one of my producers. If it's one of my producers, just text me. It's live radio / web TV, folks. So the very first time I was challenging him on Trump. Okay. Tech issues right now on Podbean. No audio on Rumble either. Trying to fix that. Okay, guys. Well, hopefully we'll get things going. Everything's good on this end over here, and we've got a hard copy recording. So if anything, we'll put it up after the fact. We really do want to get that Roger Stone interview out today, though. That's for sure. I mean, I think it's kind of important. Because, again, let's go back to that first conversation. And that first conversation is, okay, you and I both believe that Trump won in 2020. None of the infrastructure has changed. Now, this is way before the midterms. I think this is back in April. I go, what happens, you know, if he runs and the same thing happens again? You know, what do we do? And, you know, he suggested, you know, something I'm not even going to say. Rumble is fixed. Okay, excellent. So we are moving and grooving here, guys. So, you know what? Let's actually go to this Roger Stone clip. All right. I want people to check this out because I think it is important. And this is where we talk JFK very briefly. And this is towards the middle end of the conversation. Again, I think it's a bombshell. This is a bombshell revelation. I don't know that he said this anywhere else. Basically, he says that Trump, when he went over the documents, saw what happened. And he states that he, you know, asked him, and Trump said that we'll find out one day, and it's too horrible to talk about. Who knows? I'm going to let you guys decide. Here it is. Here is Roger Stone. Okay. And once again, guys, I'm not endorsing any of these people. And I wasn't endorsing a red wave. I want to be able to have a conversation and be able to talk like an adult to as many people as humanly possible, because I think that is, in fact, important. Call me kooky. So here he is, Roger Stone, talking JFK. Say this points to a systemic issue within not only our Federal Bureau of Investigations, but you just mentioned Mike Pompeo, I would argue the Central Intelligence Agency, and what many refer to as the quote-unquote swamp or deep state. So I guess the question now would be, you had Trump come out when he was the president and promised all of us that we were going to get the JFK documents. He failed on that twice. Recently, Joe Biden also punted that football. My question would be is if you can't reveal those documents and take on the deep state from 50 plus years ago, how much success will you have in modern times? Because I think that these historical events, when they expose that type of corruption, are extremely connected and necessary to show people how bad and corrupt the system really is.
Well, as you probably know, I wrote a New York Times best-selling book called The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. I'll be talking about it very extensively on the upcoming anniversary of John F. Kennedy's murder. Just to be technically correct, Donald Trump actually released about 80% of the previously restricted documents regarding the Kennedy assassination. For reasons that I don't really fully understand, he held back 20% of the documents. At the time, we know that the intelligence agencies were claiming that release of those documents would expose their sources and methods. That's absurd because there's nobody still working for the government who was in a position of authority in 1963. Secondarily, if they're covering up the murder of an American president, we need to know what their sources are. When I asked the president directly what was there, he said, I can't discuss it. You wouldn't believe it. It's so horrible. Someday you'll find out. That's kind of an incongruous answer. And then, of course, as you correctly point out, the presidential records, I should say, the JFK Assassination Records Act, called yet again for release in the current year, and Joe Biden kicked the can down the road yet again. Only the president has the authority to delay the full release of these documents. That said, in the previous data dump, we learned an extraordinary number of things. We learned, for example, that the reason that the IRS and the government never released Lee Harvey Oswald's tax records is because it would have showed a W-9 and a 1099 form from the FBI for whom he had worked as an informant. We learned that he attended the foreign language school run by essentially the CIA out of North Carolina. So we learned a lot of very valuable things, but we still do not have the full picture.
Well, let me say this. When the initial dump was allowed by Trump, I did go through those documents, and you discussed Oswald's relationship with the FBI, and his handler was a man named Warren C. DeBrew, and there was actually an extensive amount of documents that had not been released previously on that individual, so there was some value there. But again, I think that no matter how ugly and brutal it is, we deserve to know as the American public, and without knowing, we still have a system of obfuscation, and with that obfuscation comes these great narratives. On CNN last night, for instance, Anderson Cooper had Mick Mulvaney on, and Mulvaney made this statement about Trump. He feels like Donald Trump is the only person that can lose the 2024 election. And let's break that down for a second, because here we have Joe Biden, who's supposed to be, let's break that down on the other side. So that's going to be, that's a 30-minute interview. We're going to play the whole thing on the other side. Roger Stone. Again, I wasn't there to cheerlead. I thought that was a good conversation. Now, he didn't really answer the question as to, you know, how do you, once again, take these people on, right? Let's see. So many tech issues. You've been coming through, just not through on Podbean. Okay, so it's Podbean on their end. Okay. All right, hopefully we'll figure it out. Again, the Stone interview is actually really, really interesting. I'm going to shift gears because what I want to do in this first hour after we talk about NASA and Artemis, and we're going to the moon. I wanted to play Shade the Motion Picture because we are talking about elections that I believe in many cases are C-elections. And I know that we've got, a pretty new audience coming in almost every day. And Shade the Motion Picture in the intro kind of breaks down that power structure of how they groom these leaders, right? And how they're brought into the system. So we're going to do a little bit of a Shade watch along. But I wanted to point this out, show some footage. Okay. NASA shoots for the moon. $4 billion Artemis rocket that was feared doomed after months of delays finally launches on a 25-day mission around the moon. I want to show the flight path in a second. Look, I'm a big buff on the moon, at least what we're told and what we don't know and what we know. This is AP, footprints of the moon. But, what always strikes me is that we were just getting rocked by the Russians. I know it's Russian disinformation that they had all sorts of cosmonauts and a female and manned missions. And now we've kind of partnered with them, and we even did a launch to the ISS recently with the U.S. and Russians, right? What what were they doing together? They were launching up there from Kazakhstan. Meanwhile, we're in like a real conflict with all sorts of disinformation flying around and people dying and the whole nine. All right, so let's take a look at this flight path. And who knows, maybe they're doing it. This is the launch. I want to show you some of the stuff they're posting on Twitter. Okay, and they this looks so much like the Apollo rockets. That's what drives me nuts. Now there's the arc, because when you see the flight path, you'll see that basically in order to get these things into and out of orbit, there's another one of the arcs of the rocket. Let's see, was this the one? It had to be. Yeah, here it is right here. So there would be the arc around the Earth and through and around and back. Am I skeptical? You bet I am. You bet I'm skeptical. I'm not saying they're not doing it. It's not human beings on that trip. They got a dummy. It was supposed to be Snoopy. I don't know if Snoopy got cut. I saw the dummy in the front seat. But the thing is that when I talk about this stuff, right, the flat earthers come out of the woodwork. And I want to make it extremely clear. I don't believe that. I don't. At all. Okay? And I have seen a ton of their stuff. Been sent a ton of their stuff. And I am actually not afraid to look at material that challenges narratives, okay, and that I would disagree with. I do it all the time. I watched, like I said, I watched Anderson Cooper the other day. I watched CNN International. I put on the BBC, the CBC. I can take information that I think is false, and that's okay. And I have this thing called discernment and the whole nine. However, at the same time, that doesn't mean that I don't think that NASA utilizes CGI or plants a lot of disinformation into the public arena because their main purpose is weaponizing space. And then on top of that, black projects in the bio and geoengineering realms. All right, but a lot of it is this space stuff, for sure. All right, the satellites, the whole nine. And I think they've purposely put up a lot of disinformation. And we'll see what happens with this mission. But here's some of the footage that they've put out. And this is supposedly the Earth from the rocket as it leaves. And everybody can see it. This is on their Twitter. Okay? So whether or not you believe is up to you. There's more of this footage out there. And the thing is, they have all sorts of press conferences and questions and answers and, a team full of engineers inside. So you got to decide, all right, what's really going on here. And the funny thing is that, you get these big press conferences for this stuff. Okay. All right. This is stuff. When that's back in the day. That's now. That's back in the day. And that's now. Pretty similar. Pretty damn similar. And supposedly we're just doing the same thing we did in the late 60s and the early 70s. No big deal. No big deal. I think we've got different propulsion systems. I mean, we've gone over here. They have different methods and materials, even if they might look similar, that are classified with this rocket technology. The woman from Rocketdyne talks about it. Talks about them being 3D printed together at once. All right, that's the reality. All right, so you're going to hear all about this, and we're going to Mars. What you're not going to hear about is what's really going down. Okay. And what's really going down is they're putting an artificial skin around the entire planet of sensors via Starlink, Blackjack, the Mandrake satellites, other classified sats that I'm sure they're not talking about. That's all real. Okay? That's all 100%. They're riding that dog and pony show, going for it right now, happening. And with that, Bushnell, it's a clip I don't play enough, and I think I've only played once on the show. I need to clip it out. Total surveillance of everyone and everything on the planet without CCTV cameras via sensors everywhere. Sensors everywhere. I was on Rebunked last night, okay? And we talked about that, and it's in the document, the 2025 Future Strategic Warfare document I always show, is these nano sensors as well as nano satellites, but the nano sensors are creating this network. So it's not just about Elon and the gang trying to, spark up World War III and have ghosts and sidewinders. Those are drones killing people, utilizing this network or targeting places that will get blown up other ways. It's not just that. It's eventually making it a track, trace, database society that you cannot get away from. And talk about what kind of signature reduction you would need to beat that system. Be almost impossible at that point. I'm sure there'll always be loopholes and tricks of the trade, but with that kind of surveillance, things are going to get very different very quickly. So what I want to do now, and I'm obviously going to periodically peek in on this one, is I want to go into Shade the Motion Picture, because I think that Shade is a really, really important documentary on the whole infrastructure, okay? And the infrastructure that we have now are basically a predator class at the top that has utilized roundtable groups and NGOs to project their agendas onto the public, Bernaysian style, and in general, select the leaders that they want. And Bilderberg, is just one of these groups. It's a very powerful one. I want to make that very clear. And it's one whose vision I have seen come into fruition more and more and more over the years. So with that being said, we're going to jump over to Shade. And I think this work really stands up so many years later. These documentaries are not easy to do. People ask me all the time, Jason, when are you going to make another documentary? It's like, well, you know what? These are tough. They're not easy. They take a lot of time, and I can't believe it, but it's going to be a decade now since I was working on one. This one I was working on a decade ago. So here we go.
The one thing I will say that the past 50 years has given me, I would say that nothing in this world works the way you think it does. Nothing. Governments do not operate the way you think they do. Banks do not do what you think they do. The police department is not here for what you think it is. Nothing in your world works the way you think it does. There's a far higher, bigger picture.
All right, we're at the airport. We're going to be getting ready to go through TSA. Well, we're at TSA right now, and just as I figured, they're searching my bag as we speak. Welcome to America. We just drove through the Westfields Marriott. We made the loop right by the hotel entrance. Actually went onto the property.
And this is the hotel where it's all going to occur.
The globalists are incredibly dangerous. The status quo means giving into eugenics, death, and world government.
And the only way we can get back our freedoms is by fighting the oppressors. And the oppressors are here.
You are scum! You are scum! You are scum! You are scum!
One thing that I'm here to do is to provide a service that the mainstream media is not doing.
A lot of the press is owned by some of the attendees inside of here.
Instead of just harping on them and begging them to cover this, screw it. We are the new mainstream media.
The people inside basically set the agendas and tell them not to report on it.
We are here. We are documenting everything live.
End the fake! End the fake! End the fake!
Uncut, unedited.
All right, we're at the Bilderberg conference, and the police are getting kind of weird.
Did I just see that?
This is what we're reduced to. I mean, it's just trying to catch glimpses of people in, you know, hiding behind the Financial Times in the back of their limo, which is, it's not great.
And they will be defeated, and they know it, and they're starting to run scared, and they should be, because information is power, and the truth is setting us free.
Shade the motion picture. So that's what we do before we get to the actual title. What is that? About, with the commercial, I guess it's like 3.5 minutes right there. We are going to play the first chapter, but I did want to point out that Dan Dix, who we had on earlier this week, and I think we had a really great conversation with, is there. This is all the way back in 2012. Luke Rudowski, who is a regular over on the Timcast show and the founder of We Are Change. Not only is Alex Jones there, but Jim Tucker is also there. I wish I could have actually talked to Jim, but it was really in the twilight of Jim Tucker's life, and we could have really used Jim Tucker this year to find out, before the day of, everybody going to New York City, just crazy. Bilderberg in the middle of New York City, and nobody found out until the day of. I would have loved to see some Jim Tucker. I miss Jim. I miss a lot of people in this film, right? There are several people that have passed in this film. Jordan Maxwell among them. Murphy, he's passed. It's, you don't get to rock it forever, guys. Life's a fragile thing. I suggest you do the right thing, and you fight for the right ideals and morals, and you try to make changes in your own life and those around you in a positive manner. All right, let's get back to the film. Thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. And remember, when we do go over to the premium end over at redvoicemedia.com/Jason.
Which is on the back of the soundboard.
What is this right here?
And they're both on.
Huh? Sorry, guys. I'm not exactly sure what that was coming through. It's probably in my browser somewhere. It's so bizarre. We've got tech. There it is again. We've got tech gremlins. I'm going to play Shade and see if I can't find that.
In 1954, a group of industrialists, political elites, and even royalty set out to form an organization that would essentially pull the strings of society from behind the scenes.
The Bilderberg Group is a group of world leaders, CEOs, heads of banking institutions that meet every year and decide what's going to happen throughout that next year.
The media has largely ignored this organization over the past 50-plus years. And even today, when it is mentioned, it's mentioned in a manner in which you shouldn't be asking about it.
Not everyone in the media, however, is in on it. It's kind of this sense that they get of what not to talk about, what may be considered to be taboo.
Well, I'm here in my capacity as a journalist, covering it for this event for the London Guardian.
I remember you were sent down here, like 2 or 3 years ago to Bilderberg for the first time?
Yeah, 2009. And, so I thought it'd be funny, I came, I said, no one covers this, maybe I should go along and maybe it'll be a laugh, and it turned into an absolute nightmare. I got chased around Athens and ended up wrestling a secret policeman in a subway station. It was mental.
Because the mainstream media in the United States has never covered it until now. London Guardian for 4 years overseas really started breaking it. That was a big deal when you guys were covering 4 years ago with Charlie Skelton. At first, a little bit laughingly, then he got harassed, arrested, and well, this is really real. And media said it didn't exist to him. So it's the fact that they play that Jedi mind trick. This doesn't exist. You know, I mean, yeah, there's limousines. And New York Times says, no, there's another one.
The mainstream media is now acknowledging that these world leaders are meeting, except for there's nothing to worry about. They're not doing anything sinister, even though they meet behind closed doors.
Instead of being humble and saying, you know, I don't know the whole truth, we never do as journalists, all we could do is try to ask questions and do our research. And that's very important for journalists to do. To act like you know everything and to act like what you know is the most important thing is pretty much the attitude of the mainstream media.
They kind of just sit there and repeat what it is being shown on the television screen rather than thinking for themselves.
We've been programmed to believe certain things. We've been programmed to, when we hear certain buzzwords, we immediately close ourselves off to that information.
The guys in here who are deciding on foreign policy, these are the people who are setting the price of gold, setting the price of oil, deciding who's going to be presidents, who's going to be prime ministers. They operate in the shadows. They do not want to be seen. They don't want anybody to know that they are here.
One of the Bilderberg members, attendees, who's one of the big EU regulators over this, publicly has called for internet ID.
And by the way, that is Jim Tucker in the background, and there's a lot more buzz around an internet ID right now via Elon Musk and his quote-unquote X app that many people believe is his motivation for getting Twitter, something along the lines of what? The WeChat app. So definitely worth looking at. And again, showing how relevant this film is a decade later.
So they can start the taxing of that and the tracking. That's what China uses.
You know, we just drove up to the security now in press. We showed our press cards and said, can you show us to the press centre? And yeah, no, there's no press centre. Can we speak to someone who could represent the organisation to the press? No, that's not available. They're resolutely failing to nurture any kind of proper and grown-up relationship with the press, which is just kind of lame.
The people of the planet are waking up and getting past the puppets. This is about saying, hey, the puppets in D.C. are just front men.
The powerful elite hide behind the curtain of government. They hide behind the wall, the facade of government. And really, they're just a tiny dot that control the masses.
These are the shadow masters. These are the people that actually decide who runs and wins in office.
Tony Blair, 2 years before he came from nowhere to become prime minister, was here and basically certified. Bill Clinton, little-known governor, comes here in 91, boom, fast track. If they like it, it's on. Countless others, John Edwards, Gordon Brown, John Kerry. Obama was here 4 years ago. We talked to our sources inside, people saw him.
We're big on talking about how we can elect our leaders. Yes, we can elect our leaders, but you can't select your leaders. You don't select anyone. Your masters who own you will select who will run. That's all they wanted to know. Just which one do you like best? It doesn't mean much of anything.
The rule of the few, oligarchy, is on the whole the most common in human history.
Why should you care? And that's the thing. You look at somebody like Jordan Maxwell. Did he get everything right? No, I don't think everybody. I think everybody has their blind spots or gets into realms that are just incorrect. But when you talk about the selection of leaders, what do you think is actually happening out there? And I think obviously you have anomalies, but at the same time, these methods and modes of control and corruption, especially when it comes to our elections, are becoming more and more commonplace and easier to utilize. And they are now codifying that into the normalization of the elections are never corrupt. When we say they're not corrupt, there will be no audits, and these are your leaders. Okay? Just saying. Just saying.
Through a long legacy, incrementalism, and perseverance, the globalists have managed to sprinkle their people in, essentially salt their people into various governmental positions worldwide.
They plan wars, they plan money inflation, they plan deflation.
My estimate is there are about 30 million Americans who really need a job and who can't get one. So, depression level. This is a depression. This is as bad or worse than the depression of the 1930s.
They plan collapses. They plan takeovers of rogue nations.
They want an organized, controlled system where humans are manipulated. They want the resources controlled by tiny oligarchical elite.
You know, Superman in one of the movies said he stands for the American way, freedom, liberty, and justice for all. Well, I like what Dick Gregory said. You're no longer free or brave. You might want to, for the first time in your life, start thinking seriously about where you're going and where your country is going and what's going to happen to your children and your grandchildren when you wake up one day to discover your freedoms are gone, your country is gone, your protections that were guaranteed to you as a citizen are gone.
Well, it's outrageous. Our government's been taken over by the military-industrial complex that President Eisenhower warned us about in his farewell address in '61. Our money's being taken. They're announcing 30,000 drones, armed drones, to surveil us. The CIA says they're listening to our phones now without warrants.
The real leaders are going to talk now. Mommy and Daddy are going to talk now. And when they come out of the meeting, it's always wars, economic despair, and eugenics.
You know, think about what she just said there. I think it's as relevant, if not more relevant than ever, when she's talking about mommy and daddy in the room. And they told us the adults are coming back into the room. The adults. I love being treated like a child well into my 40s. You see the grays? I've actually been growing my hair out lately, letting people know I'm kind of an old man. You know, a haircut, and we can change all this, guys. I've had people accuse me of dyeing my hair or just for men. No, it's not what happens. Just a little haircut. Okay, but I still have to be treated like a child. At what point do I get to be the adult in the room? And she's wrong. What has come out of these meetings? Tell me the positivities.
I haven't seen anything good come out of the Bilderberg group.
As the global elite are escalating their agendas, we have to equally bring up our efforts to document these events, cover these events, and make sure that the Bilderberg group gets exposed for what they're doing inside there.
The mainstream media has become less and less relevant over the years and will continue to become less and less relevant as technology emerges for you and me to bring this information to the masses, to thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions.
Because technology.
Think about that. Yeah, tech is that tool. And they have been discredited. And that's why they've utilized these new tools of censoring misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, and go into the practices of pre-bunking. All of it means censorship for you, challenging the great narrative.
Technology, once again, is that avenue of upward mobility that would allow somebody to challenge your status as an oligarch, right?
The Financial Times of London writer, he's a foreign editor, who wrote Now for World Government, saying, yeah, we're authoritarian, yeah, we were secret, it's for your own good, we know best. He's here today. The only press that's here are people that literally say, I want authoritarian world government. He actually wrote that. He said, yes, we're secret, yes, we're authoritarian, because we know best. At the top of the pyramid, it's a neo-feudalistic fascist model that uses socialism on the ground to communalize and get people dependent. So it's like a false socialism. But the public thinks they're buying into it as a way to lift up the poor and stuff, but it's really designed to implode societies and to create a post-industrial world controlled by them.
We're here to let them know that their world government has been identified, and they thought they'd implode the world economy to bring in a worldwide police state, but instead it's going to bring them down.
Except for they kind of got away with that a couple years ago on various levels. Just pointing that out. Just saying it. You know, I know Jones has been saying it now a lot, but and I think he's right, he's continually pointed out, we're living in the New World Order now. And I damn straight, damn straight, after you saw who the top authoritative sources became, it became the mouthpiece of this agenda, one of the institutions that constantly promotes itself through treaties and global governance, collectivism. No bueno.
We are going to be in very serious trouble because we are ill-informed, unread, undisciplined, and have been taught to bow down and curtsy before royalty.
If you're an oligarch, you say, I get to rule. Why should you get to rule? Are you smarter than this guy over here? I have a technician who can do things you can't do. Why should you rule? What is it about you? Well, my family, my antiquity. Maybe that's not good enough. If we have a society where people believe in technology and science, they will not tolerate oligarchical domination.
If we don't stand up and take the responsibility for ourselves to stop this globalist agenda, we're looking at a world where our children don't understand what freedom is. We're already seeing that world now. The children born post 9/11 don't understand what it's like to live without the NDAA, without the Patriot Act.
You have left your government in the hands of other people to take care of things for you because you're too busy with your everyday life. Well, when you leave your personal business and your children and your life in the hands of someone else to take care of you, they're going to take care of you all right. Whatever decisions they make, they're going to take care of themselves, not you. Because you left yourself in their care, they will decide what you will eat. They will decide what you will wear. They will decide if you will have a job or not. I will decide how much you will make. And you can bet that I'm going to make 1,000 times more than you do.
I love that shot. I love that shot of Jordan Maxwell. I love that edit. He's right. Who are you letting take care of you? Who are you letting tell you what's safe and effective? Who are you letting let you have a job or not? Or try the medicine that you want? Who are these people? Well, who attends Bilderberg?
In Bilderberg, we have an organization that goes back to 1954. Now, that original generation is mostly gone, obviously. Prince Bernhard of Holland was able to hang on until 1975, when he was knocked out of the picture by the Lockheed scandal, which was a story of bribes that had been paid to foreign politicians.
The reason they want to be secret is the Lockheed scandal in the 70s. They're really worried because they're doing a bunch of arms deals in there.
It was kickbacks on the Hercules C-130 transport plane that had been sold all over the world. Right now, what we see is that some of the most famous people in Bilderberg are now getting on in years, right? We have David Rockefeller, who has been financing, in particular, the North American side, but really the whole thing, with his money and his deep checkbook.
David Rockefeller, who many argue is one of the top globalists in the world, although aging and maybe on his last legs, has really been the face of the Rockefeller family and globalization for quite some time. In fact, in his own book, he states that he and his family are part of a secret cabal that is actually trying to achieve one world government outside of the best interests of the United States.
Let me just read it for you. This is in his book. I hope you enjoy the graphic I made. I thought that was a good representation of David when he was still around. Some even believe, and then he's talking about his family, we are part of a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States, characterizing my family and me as internationalists and conspiring with others around the world to build a more integrated global political and economic structure. One world, if you will. If that's the charge, I stand guilty and I am proud of it. That's exactly what we point out via this new world order run by predator class bureaucrats and minions. a techno-fascist society that has been out of control and glued together through international trade deals and backdoor business. David? I mean, he put it in his book. He literally says, a secret cabal working against the best interests of the United States. Wow.
Why should David Rockefeller, a certifiable cretin, get to dominate the political choices of the political party? Henry Kissinger is now going around in a wheelchair, as far as I can see, also quite aged.
Many people are unaware of the Kissinger-Rockefeller connection. Now, Kissinger, of course, is an ex-Secretary of State, a winner of the Nobel Peace Prize, somebody who's been in the public eye for the better part of 40 or 50 years. Now, Rockefeller meets Kissinger at the Council on Foreign Relations and is extremely impressed. So much so that he gets Kissinger to head up the Rockefeller Brothers Fund. David and Henry have maintained that relationship over several decades since.
I never mentioned the U.S. government or the administration. I don't even use that word. There is an invisible government whose visible head is the Council on Foreign Relations in Manhattan.
And the way that they achieve their goals is they have 20 to 25 central members that go every single year to this conference. And each year, another 100 or so are recruited.
You have the very cream of the banking industry and the CEOs of very huge multinational corporations talking to elected members of parliaments from around Europe and America.
This is the richest people in the world meeting with key national security, NSA people, MI6, European security heads, Von Rompuy of the European Central Bank System, and the European Union Council. They're all here. They control the issuance of money and credit. This is it. Top of the pyramid.
The Canadian connection is huge. Of course, former prime ministers, we have Pierre Trudeau and Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin and Stephen Harper. Harper was there in 2003. Just 3 years later, he becomes Prime Minister of Canada. Alan Gottlieb, former Canadian ambassador to the U.S., is also a member. We asked him about it. He denied it.
In 1996, you were at a Bilderberg meeting, and also there was Jean Chrétien and Paul Martin.
I don't know if I was at that meeting. I've only been to a few of them.
Bilderberg attendees have included Bill Clinton, Ben Bernanke, Queen Beatrix of the Netherlands, Senator Dianne Feinstein, Melinda Gates, Bill Gates' wife and co-founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, David Cameron, Rick Perry, and members of the media such as Peter Jennings and Charlie Rose.
We see that there is a long line of people out there that are using their intellect to manipulate the masses with what's essentially mind control, public relations, propaganda, whatever you want to call it.
Peter Mansbridge of the CBC's The National is also a Bilderberg member. Heather Reisman, CEO of Chapters and Indigo Books, is in attendance, and she obviously can exert a certain influence over the way people think just by owning the amount of bookstores and magazines and newspapers. She's editor of Huffington Post Canada.
Then we have former Bilderberg attendee Sean Parker.
Before we get to Sean Parker, remember this film was made about a decade ago. Came out just under 10 years ago. It'll be the 10th anniversary coming up, I believe, in April. So about 5 months from now. I want to point out that we talk about fake news now. The media, in some kind of capacity, and sometimes in large capacity, is in attendance in this group. All right? This really is a fast track to power for the type of politician that, guess what, is in it for power in the first place, as most are. Okay? And Sean Parker in particular, remember, this is at the infancy of Facebook. You know, Peter Thiel is another one that you're going to want to look to. And I believe that Tarpley also talks about him in this section. I'm very proud of this film. You're watching the beginning of it. I hope that if you've never seen this film, this gets you to go watch it and share it with others. All of these available for free, by the way, at redvoicemedia.com in a stack. You can find them on the Rockfin over on YouTube. And by the way, YouTube's new interface is awful. Have you guys seen this? So just so everybody knows, I'm still posting over to YouTube, but now if you go home, only the videos show up, not my lives. You have to go to the live section to really see the stuff that I've been streaming. And so I think that a lot of people are going to miss the fact that I'm even uploading. I want you to think about this. I've been averaging the same amount of views on YouTube for like the last 3+ years. And I've only gained subscribers. How does that work? These algorithms, they love it. They love it. So let's continue here with Sean Parker, the Bilderberg Group, and really this techno aspect of it. By the way, let's thumbs up. Can we get 150 thumbs before we go over into the premium section of the broadcast at redvoicemedia.com/Jason?
Eventually went on at a young age to get recruited by the CIA for a web crawler program that he built. Somewhat of an entrepreneur, Forbes 400, co-founder of Napster, went on to become first president of Facebook. His newest thing is Spotify, which is an attempt to fix what Napster broke. So this guy's kind of profiteering off of both ends, and when put together with the right forces, with the right people, he has been known to be an agent of disruption.
Why should Pamela Harriman, another certifiable cretin, the late now, dominate the Democratic Party with her husband, Averell Harriman, yet another of these stupid, rich oligarchs, right? The stupid sons and daughters of rich men. The Count d'Avignon, Zbigniew Brzezinski, somewhat better shape, right? Spry, but also not immortal. Who is going to carry on this oligarchical tradition, and in what form, in the coming years? And here I would look in particular at Peter Thiel.
So I think this part's important because, again, this is 10 years on. Brzezinski is gone. Obviously, David Rockefeller is gone. These people are now gone. We just had the death of a Rothschild. That is a big, big deal. So listen, Father Time gets you all. It's an all-time winner. And these people definitely want to change that with their transhumanist agenda. But for now, who's going to bring us into that era? And really, Thiel is one of those guys, and does not get enough coverage. And again, was Trump's technology advisor. I would say another poor choice in that administration. I see a hashtag Deluxe Nation. Is Jamie here? If Jamie is here, Jamie does amazing work.
Thiel, actually born in Germany, but now operating primarily in the United States. He is the co-founder of PayPal, became a billionaire through that. He is also a member of the Facebook board of directors, meaning that he has a fiduciary responsibility, I think, to some of the people who lost a lot of money on that abortive Facebook IPO. And he has this plan to create extraterritorial offshore colonies. So I can only speculate what that means. Slavery, prostitution, narcotics, certainly no minimum wage, no health plan, no child labor laws, you name it. In other words, the destruction of civilization as we've known it. You can have Hewlett-Packard fire 30,000 people, as they're doing, and you can say the remnants and the scraps can be moved to Thiel's offshore islands. You bring in programmers from India. You can actually use such a place to begin to undercut the salary levels, to drag down the economy in the continental United States even further than it already is.
So I'm going to end it there. Everybody can check out the rest of the film for free. This is where we get into geoengineering, bioengineering, solutions later on. I'm very proud of that work to this day. I edited that thing start to finish, all the graphics. Didn't shoot all the interviews myself, but did shoot several. Got to meet Jordan Maxwell in person, sit down with him at Jerry's Deli. Those are the kind of memories that they don't have a dollar value, okay? First of all, human interactions, they're the biggest deal out there. Yeah, your family, your friends, your community, and then life experiences are really more valuable to me than material items. And sitting down with somebody just to chat and eat before I get to interview them, which is awesome. Someone that I had seen time and time and time again on internet lectures was a privilege. It's great. It's awesome. It's boom, boom. So, I don't try to idolize anybody or whatever. I got to meet Anthony Hilder on that same trip. Unfortunately, Anthony had suffered a stroke, but he did pioneering work with his Illuminati albums back in the day. So I've been a lucky guy. Jason Bermas is a lucky, lucky dude. We're about to flip over to Red Voice Media exclusively. That's leaving YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, Twitter, Getter, the whole shebango. We're leaving it soon to play you this Roger Stone interview. Now, I suggest you not miss it. If you don't want to pay the $1 for the first week or the $10 a month, redvoicemedia.com/Jason, please come over to the Podbean, theinfowarrior.podbean.com. Listen live. We'll have the full show up and running and archived later on today. I'll fix the audio. I'll just pull it from here and ensure people can get there. But this is a really great interview. Again, this isn't a cheerleading interview. This isn't an interview that isn't challenging the narrative. But I think that hopefully over the next few months as this show grows, you're going to see more of these types of interviews where real questions are asked of some of these people that kind of get softball interviews for the most part. But it's not a smear piece. It's not an attack piece where they're not bringing up real issues, right? Trump had his issues. Russia wasn't one of them. And I still got to hear Russia, 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 Russia. All right? So the whole point is to have discussions with people that you don't necessarily agree with on both sides of the spectrum, because I don't find myself on either side. You watching that film? Webster Tarpley is a pretty big left guy. He's he's pretty left. He's kind of an open socialist. His favorite was Roosevelt. We don't agree on those things. I still think that he has valuable things to say about geopolitics up until this day. Okay? So, thumbs it up, subscribe, and share. We're going to start leaving them so my producers can get ready. Come over to the Podbean. Come over to redvoicemedia.com/Jason. Watch the uncensored broadcast. Remember, if you are a subscriber, other great shows out there. Self-Defense Warrior, Alicia Pau's show is fantastic, and so many others. So let's start saying arrivederci. We'll see you later, Rumble. Goodbye, XSplit, which is really Twitter. I'm reading what I have